What is up, bros? It's Josh here, and welcome to our mini-series for captain builds in World of Warships. As you all know, in 8.0, the captain skills were changed due to the CV rework, and that did affect normal captain builds throughout the entirety of the game. In 8.0, you were able to get free captain respecs, so I thought I'd make a quick little video over each nation and each class when it has to do with captain builds. Hope this video helps you out and gives you an idea of what to build your captain around now that you have the free captain respecs. Throughout all of these videos, I will not be including the legendary modules because so few people actually have them. These are going to be basic builds that will work for most players. Obviously, some of the legendary modules will change up the playstyle a little bit, but these are just basic builds for the majority of players that they can build off and then tweak them a tad over time towards their playstyle. So I will mention some of the legendary modules, however, I will not make builds around the actual legendary modules. In this video, we will be going over the Russian Navy and the captain builds that I recommend for each one of the lines within the tech tree for the Russian Navy. In this video, though, in order, we will go over the Russian cruisers, the Russian gunboats, as well as the Russian torp boats, since they will have different captains in between each one. Moving on to Da Kamrad, the Russian cruisers. Again, you can go into the armory and pick up one of the Russian commanders. These are going to give you some decent benefits as well, if they can actually click on them. So the Russian ones are going to either be, again, coal or doubloons, and going to give you a boosted extra marksmanship, boosted high alert, or boosted preventative maintenance. So these are good things to keep an idea. You can use these on almost all of them, some more than others, but for the cruisers, you will definitely get some benefit out of a couple of these. As for the build themselves, again, one of those is doubloons, one of those is coal, so you can definitely pick those up. This is the build I would run for the Russian cruisers. So it's pretty standard. Again, as you go up, priority target, we will take adrenaline rush first, and then as you go up, again, the higher tiers at tier 8, this is when this gets a lot of value. So superintendent will give you at tier 8, because that's when you start getting radar. Radar is going to be an extra consumable you want more charges of, so this is fantastic. Again, though, you could maybe pick up BFT early or the mystery captain build if you want to grab that first. For me, though, I just kind of grab this. It's nice to have, but you won't really get a lot of use out of this early game. Concealment expert at 10 is fantastic, and then going back and really kind of looking at what you get here, and that's what I kind of hold off on these points. So depending on where you are on this line, the Russian line isn't just as cookie cutter in my opinion as a lot of others. Superintendent is really not worth it if you look at it tier 7 and under, because you're only getting a charge of AA. Now I like it at tier 10 and especially at tier 9 as well, but you could definitely drop this and grab something like Demo Expert first. This is something that will get you a lot of more fires, more damage, more XP. So Demo Expert as you're going up is really not that bad. BFT is also pretty solid too. Again, buffing up that AA just a tad. Russian AA is decent. It's not the highest AA, but it's definitely not the lowest. So picking up Demo Expert early in the line might help you level up faster, get more XP. This is going to really depend on what tier you are. This gets very good tier 9 and tier 10, pretty good at tier 8, not so good tier 7 and under. So this is really depending on where you are on the line. Demo Expert is just a good safe purchase at any tier. 2% fire chance is fantastic. The Russian cruiser line is extremely accurate and good rate of fire. After that, I'd probably go back and pick up extra marksmanship, just getting those bonus out of those captains. I think I have one of the captains. He's just not level 19, so I'd definitely do that. But taking expert loader, fantastic. Again, you can get 203s. The Moscow obviously has its big guns too. Expert loader is awesome if you can catch that ship on broadside and shoot an AP salvo instead of HE. Expert marksmanship is fantastic too. Getting your guns on target as fast as possible. Preventive maintenance is all right as well. You could maybe switch out expert loader for that. But overall, I didn't really see my guns getting knocked out too much. This is where you're going to kind of maybe give up some extra stuff here. If you, depending on what tier you are, again, picking up certain builds. I just think this is a very solid basic build. Obviously, it's considered a this is considered a battle cruiser, so it has the different repairs. But I don't think you really need to go into fire prevention or any of these builds here. I think this will get the job done, have a good time, and be able to pump out just a tad more damage. Again, superintendent, depending on what tier you are, gets a lot more value on the higher end, loses a lot of value on the lower tiers. So definitely something to look at. Go off this build depending on what tier you are. Russian gunboat destroyers. Now, this is going to be one of the lines. Now, let's just look at the tech tree and I will kind of talk about what I mean. Now, honestly, the tech tree should look at this, and then these three should be switched over to these. And these are kind of their own unique monsters. So, just briefly going over this, I'm going to be talking about the Kiev, the Tashkent, and the Kaba, maybe even the Udaloy. But these three, I think they should have definitely made this line up with these, because this is the quote-unquote torp boat line and this is the gunboat line. These do not follow the same captain, so we will go over that in just a second. But we're going over the gunboat line, which is Kiev, Tashkent, and Kaba. So that is the captain build I would run for those three destroyers, maybe even the Udaloy, because that's kind of this weird destroyer. But here we go. Russian gunboats are going to have one of the most unique builds of any line in this entire game, and you can even see right now we have 6 points that we haven't used, and we'll talk about that in a second. One of the main things is the build is a little bit different even at the start. Priority target, last stand, superintendent, very basic. But as you see, we don't even have concealment expert highlighted. That's because we're going for AFT. We don't give a shit. We're a Russian destroyer. We're going to be shooting all the time, literally shooting all the time, lighting everything on fire. Now, one of the main things you do want to grab, especially starting at tier 8 now, is superintendent to get that extra heal. Yes, Russian destroyers have heals. You will be using them because you're going to be taking lots of fire. So this is what I would kind of run here. After that, it's up to your, I don't want to keep saying this over and over and over, but it's up to your play style. Now, one thing you could do is be a tad more passive, take concealment expert, maybe get a tad closer to targets and pick that up, and then pick up adrenaline rush. Adrenaline rush is fantastic. One thing you could also do is grab adrenaline rush. Adrenaline rush is just so good, it's hard to not take, but then that makes it a tad awkward for the rest of your points. Now, one thing I would do is probably pick up BFT. Now, it's between BFT and Demo Expert. One thing you could do is drop Adrenaline Rush here and pick up Demo Expert and BFT. There you go. One thing a lot of people do, the crazies out there, is they drop Last Stand, which frees up 2 points, so they can take Adrenaline Rush and pick up these. That gives you that extra point. So you could potentially take that, but I think that's a tad too risky for me. After that, just pick up a nice basic preventative maintenance. You won't lose your guns or torpedoes. Law Russian gunboat destroyer torpedoes. But yeah, this is a destroyer line that doesn't use concealment on a lot of builds because you're going to be firing so much when it comes to this line. Again, that is totally up to your build because your detection is almost 9 kilometers, almost 8.7. However, you could also switch out, and I think this is even with the concealment. So some people even switch out for the legendary module or even the steering gears. So they could go double steering, so your detection could be even higher. This is a bit more of a riskier line, not a good early. If you're newer to the game, I would definitely avoid this line for a while, but this is what I would run on my Kaba. Kaba is a line that's kind of lost some strength over time because it takes full battleship AP, so you can kind of get wrecked a little bit. But still, this is a good build for this. A weird one. You are technically a destroyer, lol, but you are not going to be taking concealment on a lot of this. Although if you want to go a tad more safe, you could drop preventive maintenance, could drop basic firing training, and pick up concealment expert if you want. That'll get you sub 8 kilometers, but still everything's going to out detect you by like almost 2 kilometers, so it's not really even worth it to take that. So I would go a tad more of the aggressive. Again, if you want to be a crazy person, you could drop last stand and preventive maintenance, or not even care about who's detecting you, so drop last stand and priority target. This is one where I could maybe see, okay, sure, priority target isn't really worth it on this line. As this line, I say the Kiev, the Tashkent, and the Kaba, because you know you don't really care who's shooting at you. So so you could actually drop that and pick up something more aggressive. This I think is a solid, although still aggressive, still safe, I guess is the right way to put it. But again, for the Kiev, the Tashkent, and the Kaba, this is the quote-unquote gunboat line. Now we have the Russian torp boat. I say that in quotation, the torp boat line. And this is kind of the hybrid line. So even though it doesn't really show it right here, this is the build I would take from the tier 2 to the Minsk to the Ogdevoy and all the way up. Again, I wish they would switch these over. It makes more sense that way. So this is what I'm talking about for the entirety of the tech tree here, and then the Ogdevoy to the Grosvoy. Again, Udaloy is its own little weird ship. I'll just kind of throw it into this build as well, although you could kind of go towards more of the Gunboat line, which we talked about prior. But this is the build I will be running on this. Surprise, surprise, it looks just like all my other DD lines that are the hybrid style line. You'll be using both your guns and some of your torps, although the low tier ones, the torps are much shorter range. Torps are going to be a tad more for the tier 8 and up. And one of the things you could actually take on this line early game is actually dropping radio location for AFT. Again, tier 8, the gameplay kind of changes. So dropping a radio location for AFT is kind of nice, but you might have to go through a captain retrain once you get to the Ogdevoy. You're just not going to be as aggressive towards that. Although, if you just want to be a build, I know I was taking that for a while. I dropped radio location for AFT, and you can be hyper aggro and just shoot from farther away. Right now, though, without that, my Grosvoy can fire at 12.3 kilometers. To me, that's enough, and you could also boost up the main battery reload if you wanted to, but you do not get the option for the range. So that's just something to keep in mind. So if you do want to shoot farther up into that 14-kilometer range, you can pick that up. One of the downsides is with how spotty mechanics work, if you do take that extra range, you are fired, or you're fired. You are spotted from that extra range. So that's something to keep in mind as well. AFT is solid though, but you're gonna have to drop probably radio location for it. So pretty basic build for me though. Priority target, last dance, survivability expert, concealment. Pretty basic for almost every destroyer line. As I just explained, the gunboat line not taking concealment, but for almost every other line, every normal line, you're going to be taking that. So again, picking up the superintendent, again, this gets more value the higher in the line it goes. So obviously you're going to be getting this either between at point 17 or at point 19, so you can hold off a long time for this, but this is fantastic for when you get to the Udaloy as well as the Grosvoy, because the Grosvoy, again, the more consumables you have, the more value it gets. So I get an extra smoke, extra AA, extra heal, and extra speed boost. Adrenaline rush is fantastic. You're going to be a good gunboat anyway. You're going to be shooting a lot in a lot of situations, and you're going to be hunting down destroyers, so you have your big health pool, and this will get you a lot of damage outside. Again, the biggest switch you'd probably take here is radio location and or AFT. A bit more aggressive, a bit more defensive. Again, I tend to play with divisions on this account, so radio location is nice to defend yourself. But if you just want to be a more solo player, you could pick up AFT. Now, I know, again, there's a couple builds out there, don't take last stand. I just feel that that's too risky for me. I don't see the reason. And you could also drop radio location for BFT, taking BFT. Some people drop superintendent or survivability expert for BFT. How many times, I think there's probably at least already in this video, I've called this superintendent. I will always mess those up. But these are kind of the ones where it gets a little tricky. What are you going to take here? These are the main ones people kind of have problems with. However, if you drop radio location and take BFT, take these, you have an awkward random point, but you could pick up preventive maintenance. So this is what I take. BFT, AFT are going to be up to your play style. A bit more aggressive here. If you switch out radio location for AFT, you're kind of good, but just be aware that you will be spotted from farther away when you shoot. Radio location for BFT, pumping more damage out with your guns, you'll be able to pick up preventive maintenance. So again, up to your playstyle and what you want to take. You will get some love out of the captains, I guess, if you switch up and take one of these, but most of the captains don't really matter for this line. You aren't going to get the buffs from the Cole or the doubloon captain. Well, that is it for the Russian Navy and the captain builds that I recommend. In the end, it will be up to your playstyle and what you think will work for you best, but I hope this video was enlightening and helped you maybe pick a good captain build and showed the ups and downs of each captain skill for each of the lines for the Russian Navy. Anyways, guys, that's it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.